The sky above the planet. Virelia was painted in strange colors. Soft violet clouds glowed against a turquoise sky, and two suns hung low on the horizon. A small broken ship lay deep in the forest, its metal body torn and scorched. Thick vines had already started crawling up its sides as if the jungle wanted to hide it quickly. Smoke curled upward in thin lines, barely visible through the giant trees. Inside the wreckage, a human family huddled together. They were tired, frightened, and covered in dirt. The father, David, had bruises across his arms from the crash. His wife, Ilara, clutched their young daughter, Mia, who was only 7. Her tiny hands shook, but her eyes scanned their strange surroundings with quiet curiosity. They had escaped Earth during the last wave of the war, just one family among thousands trying to flee. David had flown a stolen transport, hoping to reach safety beyond the core systems. But something went wrong, and now they were alone on a world not listed on any human maps. For 3 days they survived on emergency rations. Water was taken, from leaves. Nights were cold, filled with the strange howls of unseen creatures. David set traps and built a fire, but every sound made his heart race. He didn't know who or what might be watching them. On the 4th morning, something changed. A figure stood just beyond the trees. She wore a long, dark cloak that shimmered slightly in the light. Her skin was pale gold, with faint silver patterns running along her cheeks and arms. Her eyes, large and violet, watched the family quietly. Mia was the first to see her. "There's someone there," the girl whispered. David grabbed a stick and stood in front of his family. "We don't want trouble," he said loudly. "We just want to leave." The woman raised her hand slowly, palm open. "I mean no harm," she said in soft, clear English. "I saw your ship fall. You're lucky to be alive." Ilara stepped forward. "You speak our language?" "I learned," the woman replied. "Long ago." David didn't lower his guard, but his eyes showed confusion. Why would someone out here speak an old Earth language? The woman looked past him at Mia, who peeked from behind her mother's leg. "Because I needed to," she said. "Follow me. This place isn't safe." David hesitated. Trust was hard in strange worlds, but their food was gone, and their strength was fading. Finally, he nodded. "One wrong move, and we're out." The woman turned without another word and led them through the forest. The path twisted under roots and across streams. Strange glowing insects flew overhead. The deeper they went, the quieter the jungle became, as if the world respected the place they were entering. They reached a hidden valley where waterfalls poured from glowing rocks. In the center stood a small home made of stone and crystal. It didn't look like human architecture, but it didn't feel cold or dangerous either. Lights danced across the walls as if they were alive. "You live here?" Ilara asked. The woman nodded. "My name is Nira. You may stay as long as you need." That night, Nira fed them with fruits and roots they had never seen before. She gave them soft blankets and showed them how to call for help using a tiny stone that glowed when touched. Mia, full for the first time in days, smiled up at her and asked, "Are you magic?" Nira smiled gently. "No, little one. Just careful." David still watched her with suspicion, but even he couldn't deny the peace of this hidden place. For now, they were safe. The next few days passed quietly. Nira showed Ilara how to boil leaves to make healing tea. She taught David which plants were poisonous and which could be eaten. Mia followed Nira everywhere, asking questions and laughing. Nira never grew tired of her company. But at night, when the family slept, Nira walked alone into the forest. She stood near an ancient tree and took out a small crystal from beneath her robe. It glowed softly in her hand. She whispered words in a language no human could understand. The wind seemed to pause around her. "They cannot know yet," she said quietly. "Not until it's time." The crystal pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Back in the shelter, David whispered to Ilara, "There's something she's not telling us." "She saved us," Ilara replied. "That's enough for now." "I don't trust Easy," he said. "Not anymore." Ilara looked at Mia, sleeping soundly with a smile on her face. "Sometimes we have to believe someone wants to help." Far above the forest, a drone passed silently through the sky. Its red eye blinked as it scanned the valley. It was searching for something, or someone. And soon, it would return to its masters. But for now, the jungle slept, and the stars above Virilia glowed peacefully. Nira stood in the shadows, watching the skies. Her eyes were filled with calm, but behind them, a storm waited. The days passed quietly in the hidden valley. Surrounded by tall trees and glowing plants, the human family began to adjust to their new life. Though far from home, they found a strange comfort in the peaceful rhythm of the forest. It was unlike anything they had known on Earth. Quiet, but alive. Wild, but not unkind. Mia, the youngest, woke early every morning. She would run barefoot through the soft moss, laughing as small creatures flew around her head. Nira, the golden-skinned woman who had taken them in, followed with calm steps. She answered Mia's endless questions with patience, never showing annoyance. One morning, Nira showed her how to call forest birds using a high, soft whistle. Within moments, colorful winged creatures landed on Nira's outstretched hands. Their feathers sparkled like tiny gems in the morning light. Mia clapped with joy and tried the sound herself. A bird landed on her shoulder, and she froze, afraid to move. "It trusts you," Nira whispered. "They can feel kindness." David watched from the stone shelter. He still didn't fully trust Nira, but he couldn't deny her care for his daughter. His wife, Ilara, had grown more at ease. She helped Nira prepare meals using local fruits and vegetables, learning which roots were safe and which should never be touched. One afternoon, Nira led Ilara to a shallow pool hidden between thick vines. The water glowed faintly blue, and steam rose from its surface. "It's warm," Ilara said, dipping her hand into the soft heat. "It has healing minerals," Nira explained. "It will help your burns." Ilara sat beside the pool, lowering her arm into the water. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet. Nira nodded, but said nothing. Meanwhile, David explored the area around the shelter. He kept a piece of metal from their ship as a tool and often tested parts of the forest for hidden dangers. He found old wires, broken panels, and a strange device buried beneath moss. It looked like a scanner, but far more advanced than any Earth technology. When he brought it back, Nira examined it carefully. "This is Varelian tech," she said. "Very old. It shouldn't be this close." David frowned. "You know how it works?" "A little," she said. "Enough to make it dangerous." Later that night, while Mia slept, David and Nira sat near the fire. The flames flickered, casting shadows on the stone walls. "Why are you here, really?" David asked. Nira looked into the fire. "I left my people," she said. "Not all choices are easy." David didn't press further. He sensed that her silence held pain, not lies. For the first time, he felt something besides suspicion. He felt curiosity. The next morning brought something unexpected. A small creature had wandered into their garden. It looked like a mix between a rabbit and a lizard with soft fur and scaled legs. It sniffed the plants and jumped away when it saw the humans. Nira smiled. "They're shy, but harmless." Mia spent hours watching for the creature to return. When it finally came back, she offered it a piece of fruit. It ate from her hand and then curled beside her feet, blinking slowly. She named it Shiny because of the light that reflected off its back. Days turned into weeks. The family learned to fish in nearby streams. They used long branches and nets made from jungle vines. Nira showed them how to dry the fish on hot stones so it could be stored. She also taught Ilara how to mix crushed flowers into paste for treating cuts. Life began to feel steady, even joyful at times. But not everything was simple. One afternoon, Mia wandered deeper into the forest than she should have. When Ilara noticed her missing, panic spread quickly. David ran into the trees, calling her name. Nira closed her eyes and placed both hands on the ground. A moment later, her eyes opened wide. "She's near the east cliffs," she said. "Hurry." They ran together, breath quick and feet heavy. When they reached the cliffs, Mia stood at the edge, staring down into a glowing pit. Her feet were too close to the edge. One wrong step, and she would fall. David shouted. Mia turned, startled, and slipped. But Nira moved fast, faster than human eyes could follow. She leapt forward, caught Mia midair, and rolled to safety. Dust filled the air. David rushed forward and held his daughter tight. You saved her, he said, voice shaking. Nira held her side, clearly in pain. She shouldn't have gone alone, she whispered. That night, the family sat close together. Mia curled against her mother. David watched Nira, who wrapped a cloth around her injured arm. You move like a soldier, David said. You're not just a healer, are you? Nira didn't answer. Later, when everyone had fallen asleep, she walked outside alone. She reached into a hidden compartment in the shelter wall and pulled out a small, glowing crystal. It pulsed softly. In her palm, she held it close and whispered, They trust me now, but it's not time yet. The truth must wait. The stars above Virelia blinked softly. In the silence, the jungle held its breath. The sky above Virelia darkened earlier than usual that day. Thick clouds rolled across the twin suns, casting shadows across the valley. A strange stillness settled in the forest, as if the animals sensed something coming. Nira stood at the edge of the clearing, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Her body remained still, but her mind raced. Inside the shelter, David noticed the change in her mood. Something wrong? He asked, stepping out with a hand-rolled tool in his grip. Nira didn't answer right away. Then she nodded slowly. The air smells like metal, she said. Machines are near. David looked around. He didn't hear anything unusual, but Nira had sharper senses than any of them. Do you think someone's looking for us? No, she said quietly. They're looking for me. Ilara stepped out with Mia by her side. What do you mean? Nira turned to face them. There are people from my world. I left them long ago. They want me back, not for who I am, but for what I carry. Before they could ask more, a sound broke through the trees. It was distant at first, a soft hum growing louder. The trees shook gently as something flew overhead. A sleek silver drone passed above them, its red eye glowing and blinking. David pulled Mia close. That's not a local bird. It's a scanner, Nira said. They know I'm here. She rushed into the shelter and pulled a small panel from the wall. Inside was a hidden device with glowing buttons and flashing lights. She pressed a sequence quickly. A soft pulse spread outward, and the red glow from the drone blinked twice, then stopped. The drone spun in confusion before shooting off into the trees. You just disabled it, David said. Only for now, Nira replied. Others will come. We don't have much time. Ilara looked at her closely. Who are you really, Nira? The golden-skinned woman met her gaze. For a moment she seemed unsure. Then she answered, I was born into power, a family that ruled over many worlds. But I left them behind. David's jaw tightened. Why? Because I didn't agree with them. And I discovered something they wanted to hide, something that could change everything. She looked at Mia. I came here to keep it safe. Before anyone could speak, another sound came, low and sharp, like thunder tearing through the sky. A ship landed on the far side of the valley. Dust flew everywhere. Trees bent under the force. The family crouched low, peeking through thick leaves. A group of armored figures stepped out of the craft. Their movements were practiced, their gear advanced. At the front walked a tall being in black armor. His helmet glowed faintly, and he carried a long staff that crackled with blue energy. That's a royal enforcer, Nira whispered. He's not here to talk. David's eyes narrowed. Then we need to hide. No, Nira said. He already knows I'm here. If I run, he'll hurt the people around me. He's trained to leave no trace behind. Ilara grabbed Mia's hand. We can't let them take you. Nira nodded. Then we prepare. While the enforcer and his guards began scanning the area, the family rushed to ready themselves. David dug out metal scraps from the old ship wreckage. He built a simple trap using wires and parts from the broken scanner. Ilara placed sharp stones near the pathways, hidden under leaves. Nira gave Mia a glowing crystal. "If anything happens," she said gently, "hold this. It will call me." Mia held it tight. "Promise you'll come?" "I will." The enforcer soon reached the edge of the valley. His voice boomed through a loud device. "Nira of House Valrin, step forward. You are to be returned." David stepped beside her. "What do we do?" "We fight smart," she said. "Not loud." Nira walked forward, alone, and stood just outside the clearing. "I don't belong to you anymore," she called. The enforcer raised his staff. "You carry royal secrets. You carry forbidden knowledge. Your actions threaten the Empire." "I carry hope," she answered, "and I won't give it to you." Just as the enforcer moved forward, one of David's traps triggered. A loud blast rang out, sending 2 guards flying backward. The others took defensive positions, but sharp vines Alara had placed snapped tight, tangling 2 more. Nira ran forward, spinning quickly, and sent a wave of golden light from her hands. It knocked the staff from the enforcer's grip. David joined in, using a metal pipe to disable another guard. Alara shielded Mia behind a stone wall, ready to throw heated oil if anyone came near. The enforcer fought hard, but he had not expected resistance from humans. They worked together, fast and clever, striking from different sides. Nira moved with skill and grace, her powers precise and strong. It wasn't a long battle, but it was enough. The enforcer lay on the ground, defeated but alive. He looked up at Nira with a mix of confusion and anger. "You trusted humans?" he asked, coughing. Nira looked around at the people who had stood beside her. "They trusted me first." As night fell, the family gathered around the fire. Nira's side ached and David's arm was bruised, but they were safe, for now. "They'll send more," Alara said quietly. "I know," Nira replied. "But now we're ready." The stars above Viralia burned brighter that night. In a world so far from Earth, a small group of humans had stood against the power of an empire and won their first fight. Smoke lingered in the valley air. The battle had left deep marks: scorched trees, torn ground, and broken gear scattered across the jungle floor. The defeated enforcer and his guards had been tied with vine ropes and locked inside the old escape pod. Their weapons were destroyed, their comms silenced. For now, the forest was still again. David cleaned a cut on his arm using a cloth soaked in warm herbal water. Alara sat beside him, gently wrapping the wound with strips of soft bark. Across the clearing, Mia gave Shiny, her small forest creature, a piece of dried fruit. The animal chirped softly, curling at her feet. Nira stood at the edge of the clearing, watching the horizon. Her mind raced with worry. The Empire never sent just one team. If the enforcer didn't report back soon, more ships would come. Stronger ones. She had seen it happen before. Silence was a signal. That evening, the group gathered near the fire. David sharpened sticks into spears. Alara inspected their traps. Mia played quietly, drawing patterns in the dirt. "We can't stay here forever," David said. "They'll come looking." Nira nodded. "Then we fight smarter." David looked surprised. "You think we should take the fight to them?" "We don't have a choice," Nira said. "They won't stop. They'll keep hunting us unless we show them what humans can really do." Alara leaned forward. "But how? We don't have ships or soldiers." Nira reached into her cloak and pulled out a small silver device. "This holds coordinates to an old research station hidden in the mountains. It was once used by royal scientists. If we can reach it, we can send out a decoy signal. Something strong enough to confuse their scanners." David raised an eyebrow. "Won't that just attract more attention?" "It will," Nira said. "But it will also give us time. If we can lure them away, we might find a safe place beyond the mountains." The next morning, they prepared for the journey. David created new tools from wreckage scraps. Alara packed food and healing supplies. Mia collected bright stones and flowers, slipping them into her small bag. They set off before sunrise. The trail was steep, full of thick vines and slippery rocks. Strange sounds echoed through the forest. but Nira led the way with steady steps. She knew every path, every sound, every danger hidden beneath the leaves. On the second day, they reached a narrow cliffside. Below them, rivers sparkled like silver threads. Above, sharp mountain peaks scraped the sky. The air grew colder, the wind faster. As they walked, Nira slowed. She touched the rocks and whispered in a soft voice. Lights flickered across the stone, forming a doorway. It opened silently, revealing a tunnel that led into the mountain. Inside, the walls glowed gently with blue light. Machines lined the hallway, long abandoned but still humming faintly. They reached the control room, where a large panel blinked to life as Nira approached. She placed her hand on the console. "It still knows me," she said. "Even after all this time." David watched as alien symbols floated in the air. "Can it really send a signal?" "Yes," she replied. "But we have to act fast." As Nira worked, Alara set up traps near the tunnel entrance. David reinforced the outer door using heavy stones and metal beams. Mia explored the room, her eyes wide with wonder. Suddenly, a sharp alarm echoed through the chamber. "They're close," Nira said, her fingers flying over the controls. "I just need one more minute." Outside, the sound of ships roared through the air. Dust shook from the ceiling. Alara looked toward the entrance. "They're landing." David handed her a spear. "We hold them off until she's done." The family moved into position. The first wave of soldiers stormed the tunnel, but David triggered a trap that dropped rocks from above. Alara used a slingshot to knock a blaster from an enemy's hand. Mia stayed hidden behind a control panel, clutching the glowing crystal Nira had given her. As the enemy pushed forward, Nira sent the decoy signal. A loud hum filled the chamber. Lights burst from the console, racing upward into the sky like a firework. Across the galaxy, Empire systems would now show false coordinates, ones leading far from the mountains. "It's done," Nira shouted. "We have to go." They fled through a side tunnel Nira had revealed earlier. The passage led them through dark, winding paths until they emerged on the other side of the mountain. Behind them, the research station collapsed in a loud blast. David had set explosives to cover their escape. Breathing hard, they stood on a high ledge watching smoke rise in the distance. "Did it work?" Alara asked. Nira nodded. "They'll chase shadows now. We bought ourselves time." Mia stepped forward, looking up at the stars. "Where will we go?" David placed a hand on her shoulder. "Somewhere they can't find us." Nira turned to them. Her eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight. "Wherever we go together. You're not just survivors now, you're protectors. You stood against one of the strongest forces in the galaxy, and you won." The wind carried their silence. That night, they built a small fire at the edge of the cliff. Above them, stars spread across the sky. They were far from home, far from safety, but no longer afraid. They were no longer running. They were rising. The mountain wind grew colder as the group climbed higher. Every step took them farther from danger, but it also brought new silence. They had escaped the Empire's scouts and destroyed the tracking station, yet a strange heaviness followed them. Nira walked ahead, her face calm, though her eyes showed a storm inside. Below, the forest had vanished behind fog. The sky above was now clear and full of stars. The narrow trail twisted between sharp rocks, leading them to a quiet cave Nira had once used long ago. It offered shelter from the cold and safety from watchful eyes. As the fire flickered inside the cave, David broke a piece of bread and handed it to Mia. She sat close to Alara, tired from the long climb. The warmth of the fire soothed their sore limbs, but the tension still hung in the air. David looked at Nira. "You've been hiding something," he said quietly. "I've seen it in the way you look at Mia." Nira didn't respond at first. She stared into the flames, as if they might speak the words she couldn't. Finally, she took a deep breath and spoke. "I didn't find your family by accident," she said. "I was looking for someone." Alara turned toward her. "What do you mean?" "Years ago, I was part of the royal line," Nira continued. "My family believed in order through control, but I believed in choice. I met a man, a human soldier during a peace mission. He was brave, full of life, and saw me as more than a title. David shifted closer, listening carefully. We fell in love, she said. It wasn't allowed. Our bond was forbidden. When I became pregnant, I knew the Empire would never accept a half-human child, so I hid it. I made plans. Alara's eyes widened. You had a baby? Nira nodded slowly. A girl. I arranged for her to be taken to Earth, where she could grow without fear. But war came faster than I expected. The man I loved. He died in the fighting. I never saw the child again. She looked at Mia, who was now watching her with quiet eyes. When I met you in the jungle, Nira said softly, I felt something, a connection. But I didn't understand it right away. Then I saw the pendant around her neck. It's from my world, a piece of my family's crest. I had given it to the caretaker who promised to protect her. David's voice was tight. Are you saying Mia is your daughter? Nira shook her head. No, not my daughter. My niece. The child I gave away was taken in by your family. Mia is the daughter of the woman I gave up. My daughter's child. That makes her my blood. Ilara covered her mouth, but we adopted her. We never knew where she came from. She was placed with you for safety, Nira explained. The Empire erased her records. You were chosen because you were good people. You raised her with love. David stared at Mia. We thought she was just a war orphan. We never guessed. Mia held the pendant in her hands, turning it slowly. So, I'm not fully human? Nira reached out and gently touched the girl's hand. You are human, and more. You carry strength from two worlds. Mia looked at her parents. Do I still belong with you? Ilara pulled her into a hug. You will always be ours, no matter what. David nodded. Family is built by love, not blood. Nira smiled, but her eyes were filled with both joy and sadness. She deserves to know the truth. The Empire fears people like her. That's why they hunt me. David's voice became firm. So this isn't just about you hiding. This is about protecting her. Yes, Nira said. And the time is coming when she must choose who she wants to be. A long silence followed. Ilara finally spoke. What happens now? I've sent false signals to distract the Empire, Nira said. They'll be looking in the wrong places. But not for long. When they learn the truth, they'll return. In force, David stood. Then we prepare again. We've come too far to run. Ilara looked at Mia. We'll fight for her future. Nira's voice was steady. You've shown more courage than armies. They expected fear. They found family. Mia stepped forward. I'm not afraid. The fire cracked softly, casting long shadows on the cave walls. That night, the stars above seemed brighter than ever. A truth once buried had now risen, not to destroy, but to bring strength. The past had returned, but so had hope. A young girl had found her roots. A family had discovered their purpose. And an empire would soon learn that humans, once again, were not to be underestimated. The wind howled across the rocky ridge as the family finished setting up camp. Their supplies were low, and their bodies ached from the climb. But they had no choice. There was no turning back. The truth about Mia had changed everything. She was more than just a child. They now knew she carried the blood of two worlds, and that meant the Empire would never stop searching. Nira stood at the edge of the cliff, eyes scanning the distant skies. Her golden skin shimmered faintly in the moonlight. She had been silent most of the day, thinking. She knew time was short. The false signals she had sent could only delay the Empire for so long. Sooner or later, they would come. David joined her, holding a small lens he had fixed using parts from the wreckage. Do you see anything yet? Not yet, Nira replied. But I feel it. The silence is too perfect. David nodded. We've bought some time, but not much. Back near the cave, Alara showed Mia how to build a small fire. The flames flickered, gently, casting soft light on their faces. Mia watched the sparks rise, then looked up at her mother. Will they hurt us if they find us? She asked. Alara wrapped an arm around her. They'll try, but we won't let them. Mia looked at the glowing stone around her neck. Why do they want me so badly? Because you're rare, Alara said, and they fear what they don't understand. Before Mia could respond, a sudden crack split the night. The sky lit up with a bright flash as a ship burst through the clouds. It was large, dark, and fast. Lights along its sides blinked with sharp red signals. It circled once, then began to descend near the ridge. They've found us, Nira said, already moving. David grabbed a metal rod he had sharpened into a weapon. Then we fight. Alara took Mia's hand. Stay close to me. The ship landed with a roar. Dust and wind exploded outward as its ramp dropped. Soldiers in dark armor marched out, weapons glowing. Their leader, tall and silent, wore a helmet with a silver crest. His voice echoed through a speaker. Nira of House Valrin, he called. Surrender the child. There will be no mercy if you resist. Nira stepped forward. You'll get nothing from me. The leader raised his arm. Then you've made your choice. Blaster fire erupted. David pushed over a boulder, creating a barrier. Alara pulled Mia behind a tree. Nira sent out a wave of light from her palm, knocking back the first line of attackers. The battle began. David used the terrain to his advantage, hiding behind rocks, striking quickly, then disappearing again. He moved with surprising speed, catching the soldiers off guard. Alara used sling traps she had prepared earlier, tripping enemy fighters and slowing their advance. Mia stayed low, gripping her pendant tightly. It glowed brighter with each second, reacting to her fear and something deeper. Something awakening inside her. One soldier reached the tree where Mia was hiding. Before he could fire, a flash of energy burst from the pendant, sending him flying. Mia stared at her hands, eyes wide. Alara looked at her. You did that. I didn't mean to, Mia said, trembling. It's okay, her mother replied. Use it to protect yourself. On the other side of the ridge, Nira faced the commander. Their weapons clashed in a burst of sparks. He was strong, trained, and without mercy. But Nira had something more. Purpose. You gave up everything, the commander growled. For what? For them, Nira said, pushing him back. For the future. Behind her, Mia ran toward the fight. Her pendant pulsed with energy, lighting the battlefield. The commander turned just as the girl raised her hand. A beam of light shot forward, striking his weapon and shattering it. He stepped back, shocked. She's just a child. She's more than that, Nira said. The remaining soldiers, seeing their leader disarmed, began to retreat. But Nira didn't let them escape. With a single motion, she raised both arms, and a wave of golden energy spread across the ground, trapping the soldiers in a field of glowing chains. David and Alara stood beside her now, bruised but proud. They had held their ground. They had protected their child. As the dust settled, Nira looked at Mia. You were never meant to hide. The strength in you is real, and now the galaxy will know. Mia walked forward slowly. I was scared, but now I know who I am. David placed a hand on her shoulder. You're our daughter. That will never change. Alara smiled. And you're not alone. That night, they stood together under the stars. The Empire had come with fire and fear, but it had been turned, away by love, courage, and the will to fight. For the first time, the wind carried no warning, only peace, but they all knew it wouldn't last forever. More would come. Stronger forces. Bigger ships. Still, the message was clear. Humans don't run, they resist, and when they stand together, they are unstoppable. Morning light spilled gently over the quiet mountain. The air was cool and clear. Birds circled high above the ridge, singing soft notes that echoed across the valley. The battle was over. The dust had settled. But what remained was not silence, it was change. Nira sat beside the fire, her back straight and her eyes focused on the horizon. Her cloak was torn, her skin marked with cuts, but her spirit was steady. Across from her, David adjusted the edge of a broken shield. He had no training as a warrior, but that didn't matter anymore. He had fought because he had to, and won. Alara gathered herbs near the cliff wall. Her movements were slow but sure. She moved like someone who had learned to be strong in hard places, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. She glanced at Mia, who stood not far away, watching the sun rise. The girl held the glowing pendant in one hand. Her other hand rested on a small stone where she had drawn symbols in the dirt. The lines looked alien, but she had drawn them without thinking. Something inside her seemed to know. Nira rose and walked to her. "You feel it, don't you?" she asked gently. Mia nodded. "It's like something is waking up." "That's your bloodline speaking," Nira said. "It's ancient. It holds power, but it also holds memory." Mia looked up. "What does it mean?" Nira paused before answering. "It means you're a bridge between what was and what could be." David stepped closer. "What happens now?" Nira turned to him. "Now we stop running. It's time to speak. The galaxy needs to hear the truth." Alara looked up from her work. "Won't that bring more danger?" "Yes," Nira said. "But hiding didn't work. If we remain shadows, they will hunt us. Forever. But if we stand in the light, they'll have to face us." David rubbed his chin. "So we go public?" "Not just public," Nira replied. "We call for change." That evening, they returned to the ancient ruins at the base of the mountain. Long ago, this had been a gathering place for the Virelian Council. Stone arches stood tall despite time. Glowing vines wrapped around the pillars, giving the area a quiet, holy feel. Nira approached a large, circular platform in the center. She placed a crystal orb onto a pedestal and pressed her palm to it. A soft hum filled the air. Lights floated upward, forming a projection, an open channel to the galaxy. "This is Nira of House Valrin," she said clearly. "Daughter of the stars, former heir to a throne I no longer recognize. I speak today not as a ruler, but as a mother, a fighter, and a witness." David and Alara stood behind her. Mia stepped forward, holding her pendant in one hand, her face calm. "For too long," Nira continued, "the Empire has ruled through fear. It has erased stories, silenced voices, and destroyed families. But something survived. Hope. And it lives in the child beside me." The projection shifted, showing Mia's face. She is human and Virelian. She is both. And because of that, the Empire calls her a threat. But I call her a future. Across distant systems, rebels, refugees, and forgotten people watched the message. Some in silence, some with tears. Soldiers who had questioned their orders now listened with open minds. "We will not hide anymore," Nira said. "We will protect what matters, and we ask others to do the same." As the signal ended, the orb dimmed, the valley became still again. Alara reached out and held Mia's hand. "You were brave." David smiled. "Your voice reached farther than any weapon." Nira turned to them. "Now we wait." The waiting didn't last long. A week later, messages began arriving. First from small planets, farmers, teachers, former soldiers, then from bigger colonies, leaders who had lost faith in the Empire but didn't know how to fight back. One by one, they offered support, ideas, and protection. The small fire they had lit was growing into a blaze. One night, a group of travelers arrived. Some were human, others alien. All had heard the message. They brought supplies, tools, and news from beyond the stars. They called themselves the Free Path, and they had chosen Mia as their symbol. Mia didn't fully understand what it meant. She still liked chasing Shiny around the camp and drawing pictures on cave walls. But she listened when Nira spoke. She watched when her father worked with metal, and learned from her mother how to mix healing herbs. Bit by bit, she grew into someone new. She wasn't just a child of two worlds. She was becoming something greater, a reason for others to believe again. And in the quiet moments, when the stars shone bright, Nira would sit alone and whisper into the night. You were right, my love. She's more than we dreamed. The galaxy had changed, not with war, but with one act of courage, and the love of a family who refused to give up.